This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that the fake news itself, 60 Minutes, ran a piece last night about fake news and even went as low as to interview James ALEFANTIS, who is one of the world's worst actors you will ever see, who got all choked up and emotional, talking about how he was targeted and under character attack for people questioning some really disturbing photos of young children that he posted on his Instagram account. But the fake news agenda is really starting to push forward and become more and more of a problem for a lot of us who are actually not a part of the mainstream media, and a lot of us who are not actually plants who have been put in this community to hijack it. YouTube is, demonetizing a lot of our videos, blocking a lot of them. The video I did on Zionism yesterday that I uploaded is blocked in a lot of countries. I'm not even sure if a lot of people were able to see that because it wouldn't even show up if it's blocked where you live. And that is because they are going to start censoring us to try to drive us off the internet. This is something a lot of people know about and are aware of. But 60 Minutes, probably one of the worst shows you'll ever see. It's ironic they were talking about fake news. All they had to do was hold a giant mirror up if they wanted to see fake news, because there's not much faker than the old farts on 60 Minutes peddling disinformation week after week, acting as if politics and all this stuff is real, the alt-right they call us. And I'll get into that at the end, but I want to read to you some of the stuff about how fake news becomes a popular trending topic, according to 60 Minutes. It says in the last election, the nation was assaulted by imposters masquerading as reporters. So this is part of the thing you're going to see is a lot of these people who are hijacking the truther community come in and they act and they say that they're journalists and then they're reporters. I don't consider myself, I don't know what I am. I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel. I have a lot of knowledge of the enemy here, and I do my best to expose it and talk about it. I don't come here to pat myself on the back and say, I'm an investigative journalist and a reporter. Okay, that's a sign of a plant if you hear people start talking about themselves like that. But they're saying that people masqueraded as reporters during the election, which is just absolutely ridiculous. They poisoned the conversation with lies on the left and on the right. Many did it to influence the outcome, others just to make a buck. Yeah, I don't think people like me were trying to influence the outcome of the election, being that it was already rigged and staged and planned and predetermined many years ago, because these elections aren't real. That illusion of a republic is what we live in. It says the president uses the term fake news to discredit responsible reporting that he doesn't like. But we're going to show you how con artists insert truly fake news into the national conversation with fraudulent software that scams your social media account. The stories are fake, but the consequences are real. This past December, Edgar Welch opened fire in a Washington, D.C. pizzeria. One of the fakest news stories ever, by the way. He told police he was there to rescue children forced into prostitution by Hillary Clinton. So you see how they've twisted this whole story. And what's happened with Pizzagate. And as most of you know, I was one of the first people to talk about it. A lot of us were, talking about this when it first happened and talking about the Zionism connection, Crowley's teachings and all that stuff. The story was hijacked by plants that they put in this community, guys like David Seaman, the Petabones, these people who came out of nowhere who had connections to the mainstream media, who suddenly were on InfoWars and pretending that, they were investigative journalists talking about this story. They hijacked it because they wanted to hijack the narrative. The narrative went away from Zionism, the teachings in the Talmud, the stuff that I'm constantly talking about and that real truthers are constantly talking about, and it turned into a political thing, talking about how it's liberals are the ones who are these pedophiles like Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, which of course those people are involved in this stuff, but so are the people on the right and the left. They all are. And until people start getting to the core of it, this stuff's going to continue to go on until people start realizing who's really behind it. And that's why it's so important to talk about the Talmud and Zionism and talk about Crowley and his teachings to make people aware. This has nothing to do with the left and right, but that is why the story was hijacked. It was hijacked by plants in the community to lead the narrative away from the actual truth and to put it, into a little package box that was all about Donald Trump draining the swamp. And that's why we got from point A with Pizzagate, which I still, do believe is real. I believe there's an investigation that needs to be done. But, the people out there who are peddling off of this and just continue to report on the same stuff over and over to make a buck, and you know who these people are, they're not doing anything to raise awareness about what's going on. Calling people out on Twitter and saying that they're pedophiles isn't going to get things done. Talk about the Zionists. Talk about the people who practice these things, the Satanists. And then we'll start raising awareness. Then things can be done. But until then, talking about the left and the right and acting as if this is a liberal thing is just exactly the narrative that the mainstream media wants. So back to the story. It says the story of Secretary Clinton's child sex trafficking operation at a pizzeria was invented before the election by fraudulent news sites and shared by millions. James ALEFANTIS owns the restaurant. It went from a few people buzzing about something online or inside of chat rooms that we never would have seen before to suddenly being blasted to millions and millions of people. ALEFANTIS said it started on November 4th. he started to get strange messages directly into Instagram and to Facebook, and these direct messages were saying all kinds of very strange and bizarre things. Not as strange and as bizarre as the pictures you were putting up there, buddy. Not as strange and bizarre as having naked people having pizza over their genitals, having kids taped to tables, the creepy artwork in your restaurant. I don't think the messages you were getting were anywhere near the creepiness or the bizarreness of the stuff you posted yourself. Nonetheless, ALEFANTIS says many of the threats were death threats. I think were some of the worst things that happened to me. People saying that they wanted to see my guts cut out and spill on the floor of my restaurant. Okay, if people were saying stuff like that, you would have pressed charges for starters. He said one person said that they prayed that someone would come and kill everyone inside, and it was a terrifying moment, as ALEFANTIS got all choked up during the interview. I mean, this is just to pander and to play on the emotions of people, okay? That's why it's so important to realize mind control and how it works. People are always manipulating. That's what they're doing. ALEFANTIS is here manipulating the dumbed-down audience that's watching 60 Minutes. You have other people out there who are just manipulating their audience. Okay, I try to just give the truth here. I'm not looking to manipulate anyone. I respect everyone who listens to this channel, and I respect your own discernment. You make your own decisions about things. You watch who you think is right. Take some from here, take some from there. I'm not right about everything. There's going to be a lot of things we all disagree on, but you have to be aware that there's people out there with an agenda who are trying to manipulate you, and obviously this is a manipulated story that they're pushing on 60 Minutes about fake news and how dangerous it is, because they don't want people listening to channels like mine. It's not censoring people, you know, who are coming from the mainstream media and jumping into the truther community. It's censoring people who are actually talking about the real problem behind all this. You know, this is the CIA. This is the Zionist CIA, okay? This is the Satanists. This is Crowley's teachings. I say it over and over because it's important to remember that. It's not about a political, politicians in general. All the politicians are involved, but the bigger picture is not being addressed, and they don't want you to look into those things. They don't want you to look into McMorrin. They don't want you to look into the Franklin cover-up. There's a reason for it, because you'll see the same dots connected to the same places, and it all leads back to the Zionists, Satanists, and the Synagogue of Satan, because that's what they are. The article goes on to say the police say there's no sex trafficking conspiracy, but millions read about it on dozens of websites, including one called Danger and Play, which wrote Clinton's inner circle includes child traffickers, pedophiles, and now members of a sex cult. So this is some of the stuff like I'm talking about with how this entire thing was hijacked. Okay, you see how this site Danger and Play, you see why they don't mention a call for an uprising. They don't mention other, truth channels out there with big subscriber bases who reach a lot of people. My Pizzagate videos, all in all, probably reached about 1 million people, or at least 1 million views, probably the same people who watched it. So maybe 100,000 people, let's say. But they would never talk to me. None of these 60 Minutes wouldn't come calling me up. I mean, here you see Michael Cernovich. This is another guy who is planted in here, Southern California lawyer, okay, who is planted in this community. Him, Seaman, the Pettybones. These people are here to hijack the truth. So they're going to be the face of the alt-right, along with guys like Alex Jones. We all know what Jones is all about. And he's been peddling this stuff for a while, telling you some truths, but keeping people away from the real truths. He doesn't touch on the Jews, of course not. And it's the same thing you're going to see here. These new people are going to be the face of the alt-right. And that's very dangerous. We cannot have ourselves, people who listen, linked up to the alt-right. We are not the alt-right. The alt-right is no different than the right and the left. It is a made-up movement by the mainstream media to classify us and lump us in with a lot of these frauds who were placed here deliberately. This is how COINTELPRO works. They put these people in here. They come from mainstream backgrounds like Cernovich. Okay? Somehow he gets on 60 Minutes. You can see his Twitter. He's pushing his book. This is what they do. They're not going to come calling me to go on 60 Minutes because the first thing I'll say is, why don't you pick up the Talmud, old man, before you start calling stuff fake news? Why don't you address that? Why don't you address how this is in every temple in the country, huh? Why don't you address Aleister Crowley and how he talks about raping and molesting kids for black magic rituals, and then we see him on the album covers of the Beatles and all these other people pushing him and promoting him? Think that's a problem? You want to call that fake news? Of course they wouldn't have people like myself out there and on there. So these people they are putting in here to even push the fake news narrative. These people are going to continue hijacking real stories and then taking you away from the truth. And that's really what they want. They want to make sure that they can start branding these guys who have backgrounds with the Huffington Post, who have backgrounds with Fox News, and putting them in here so that they are the faces of this. And they're going to hijack these stories, and they're going to, sensationalize a lot of it, so that they can keep pushing the fake news narrative in the mainstream. Cernovich says, talks about how he reaches 83 million people. He goes on and says, oh, it was a slow month. I hit 150 million, views or retweets, whatever it is. And he starts talking about that. They start talking about marketing. They start talking about buying views and all of this stuff. This is all part of the narrative that they are taking and running with, and they are linking all of us up. So, again, I don't want to be repetitive talking about this, but I want to make sure that you, the listener, is aware. Do not fall for this. Understand that COINTELPRO is real. okay, that they really do put people here to hijack stories. That's how they jump and they grow these guys. They take them out of nowhere from, working for ridiculous, real fake news publications like the Huffington Post, and they throw them in here with no, they have no knowledge of any of this stuff. They have no background in any of this stuff. They tag themselves journalists. They tag themselves as reporters. And then they take people in this community and they use mind control tactics. The way they talk, number one, there's a method to that. The way that they constantly will make themselves look like they're under attack. Okay, those are all things. Listen, I'm under attack every day. The last couple days specifically, I can't even tell you how many people have messaged me calling me a pedophile because I went after, somebody who is a shill, who is a plant here in one of my videos. And they're saying that I'm a pedophile and I want to, I rape kids and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't come on and do videos and go, oh, poor me, let me talk. Because that's not what this is about, but that is a mind control tactic. So these people who are here at Plants, they're using mind control. And trust me, you guys who listen to this channel, you know that I understand mind control. I study this stuff. I see how they work and they persuade people. So don't fall into the trap of any of it. The only truth in this world is Jesus Christ. Take stuff from this channel that you think is good, and share it. Take stuff from other channels, but don't fall into these traps. Okay, these traps of hijacked stories, because you're not going to get fake news. You're going to get led off the edge of a cliff. That's where they're trying to walk everyone. And these guys are going to keep popping up on CBS. They're going to pop up on Fox. They're going to pretend that they're the face of these movements when they're not. They're not putting any information out. They're taking other people's information and they're using a little bit of it and repeating themselves over and over. They're not doing anything. But the mainstream media needs these guys there to be the face of this so that they can continue to hijack the stories, then go on the news and act like idiots on 60 Minutes instead of saying, bringing up real details about ALEFANTIS, right? I mean, how come we never hear that? How come nobody just goes, well, what do you think about these pictures ALEFANTIS posted? Why did Michael Cernovich not talk about that? Of course they're not gonna. The first thing I'd say is that, then I'd bring up Zionism and the Talmud. That's the stuff. You want to get this guy who's going, hey, you guys are fake news. You guys are making stories up. They go, oh yeah, what about this picture of a kid taped to a table? Oh, he claims it's his goddaughter? How about these other thousands of photos that he's put out with sexual imagery with children? And what would this guy on 60 Minutes do? His jaw would drop and they wouldn't air it. They would not air it, okay? But they want these people. They're going in there, like Cernovich, like Seaman. They're going on these mainstream channels. They're talking about these serious topics, which, are real, which have, much larger connections to the CIA and to Zionism and all that stuff. So they're much bigger than people make them out to be, because a lot of these people are gatekeepers for it. So, again, this article goes on to talk about Cernovich. The 60 Minutes piece you can watch for yourself. I can't put it in here for copyright purposes. They wouldn't be allowed to upload it. But again, it's important to know this stuff. Be aware. Always be thinking when you're listening to some of these people. What are they trying to do? Are they, don't go in an alpha state, like I always say. Be critically thinking when you're listening to these people speak. And if you see the same stuff, if you see them constantly saying the same thing, you see them peddling and, peddling products, stuff like that, just be careful, because they are here to hijack this movement. And they're the ones who are really going to keep creating this fake news narrative, because they're going to take these stories, sensationalize it, and then not link up to any of the real connections here. The CIA is not going to get discussed. The Jews aren't going to get discussed. And those are the things that need to be discussed. Because if the people out there knew about the CIA and their involvement in all of these things, all of the events, the false flags that go on around this country, around the world, then people would start waking up. But they don't want that. So people are going to sensationalize a lot of this stuff. They're going to act like lunatics. They're going to keep tweeting, like this guy David Seaman does, telling people off. We should hang John Podesta says. And every time he just tweets all day long, we should kill him. Let's kill him. Let's kill him. Let's get him. Let's get him. That is all what they want. They want you to continue to get riled up, to not investigate any further, to not look into who's really behind it, and to act like lunatics so people can point and then they can go, look at these people. They're crazy. But obviously we all know that we're not. But we have to be aware, we have to be educated on the enemy and know them and know what they're trying to do and see mind control tactics being used and point them out and expose them and make sure that people out there aren't being misled, because too many people are falling into the trap now with a lot of these people that are coming out of pretty much just coming out of the mainstream media and then tagging themselves with people like myself when, there's no connection. You're not, I don't see any of these people exposing anything. I see them talking about Donald Trump like he's going to save the world. I mean, these are all signs of agents. They talk about the election like it's real. They talk about Donald Trump like he's a hero. They want you to stay in that false paradigm mindset of left versus right and now alt-right. So we need to all stay away from this stuff. It's poison. It's poison to the truth is really what it is. I thank you for listening to today's show. I should say today's rant. I went a little off topic, but I just think it's really important for people out there to be aware that this movement here and what we've, other channels have created here for a while who have been here a lot longer than me, myself now being, in this community, we're all under attack and we're all being hijacked now by these plants like the Pettabones, the Siemens, the Cernoviches, who are now going to hijack, the actual truth and they're going to manipulate it and never lead people in the right direction. So that's exactly what Jones does, exactly what a lot of these guys do. So make sure you're always thinking. I thank you again for listening to today's show. God bless all of you and your families.